All right. So first step would be perhaps to enter this into your calculator, and you got to make sure, right, use a negative, all of those things. If you get an error, syntax error, you need to probably figure out what you did wrong, right? If you go minus there and you go ahead and graph it, it's going to give you a syntax error, which is how you typed it in. If you choose go to, if that's an option it gives you, you hit enter, it usually goes right to the problem. Not always, but quite often. So that should be a negative, right? Then I hit graph. I always want to orient myself like, okay, where is this graph even going to go? So the things that I'm asking you to find, those are things that you should be doing anyway when you're trying to graph something, okay? So I don't see a thing right now. Okay, I don't see a thing. So let's see what we can do to adjust our window. You can just randomly start increasing your window, but that could be time consuming. So the coordinates of the vertex, okay, the vertex right off the top, you recognize this is in vertex form, so I know that it's 15, 20, right? That's a mark right there. That's actually going to help me figure out my window. So maybe I'll do that right away. I'll take my calculator and I'm like, okay, 15, 20, right? That means, just imagine it, right? This would be 15. Right now I'm looking at 10 because my window is set to the standard window, 10, 10, 10, 10. Everything is 10, right? That's Zoom standard. That's what it does. It doesn't really help me here. So I'm going to go window. Oh, it's still graphing. Okay. There. Window. And I'm going to increase my X max to make sure 15 is included. So you shouldn't go like 15. You should probably go 30 or maybe even more, because you know that it's going to get to the vertex and continue. So I'm going to go 40 perhaps. Let's see if that works. So I'm just changing my X max right now. Mine is a little slow, but there it is. I can see it. Right, I can see it. So it was a little overkill. I can actually probably come down to 25 or something like that to see a bit more of it, right? And you did expect it to be a narrow curve, right? This number right here tells us this will be a very narrow parabola, right? It's a big number for A. And so now I've got most of it going. I'm going to keep increasing my Y max to see the vertex. So I'm going to go to 25 on the Y max. Graph this again. You have to keep graphing it. That's a bit, mine is really slow. I know how to change that to be faster, so I will show you that later. So this is good, but I still need to see the y-intercept, so I need to go further down. And you can tell that this is going to go quite a ways until you see the y-intercept. So what you do is, and I had to do this myself, you can go negative, let's try negative 100. It's not going to work, but those of you that found it already know that it's much smaller, right? That number is like minus 4,000 or something like that. So I'm going to go minus 5,000. So if you kept playing around with that, once you get to that point, that's when you start to see the y-intercept. So this would be a very good window right now. Seeing all the intercepts and the vertex, so you're good to go, okay? So why don't you write down the window? I'm going to do that here. The window that I used is negative 1025 and negative 5,025. That worked for me. You may have had a different window. The answer still will be the same. Okay. All right, B. The number of x-intercepts. You can say something like this. I know that, right? That A and K have opposite signs, right? Therefore, the parabola will have two x-intercepts. If it's 2 marks, you should expect there to be a bit more, right? A positive, right? A negative means, right? Means you can do this if you want, right? And k positive, what that means is that if this is my x-axis, right, I know that the vertex is going to be somewhere above the x-axis, right? So this is what's going to happen, and it's going to cross it twice, right? So I'm a big fan of diagrams if you want to support your explanation. But I think if you have this part right here, I would give you 2 marks for today. But I think I would like also being very specific, like a negative a value means this, that it's pointing down, and a positive k value means that the vertex is above the x-axis to get the full marks. C, the y-intercept. By the way, you could have found the vertex using the calculator. I wouldn't have known, right? Regardless, there it is. C, the y-intercept, that's second trace 1, x is equal to 0, right? So I go ahead and find that using my calculator, and that is negative 4005.25. Okay, 0, negative 4005.25, sorry. So you get a mark for that there. For D, it's the coordinates of the x-intercept. So that one, sorry, y2 is equal to 0, right? And then second, trace 5. You have to do that a couple times. So I'm going to go second trace 5. You don't have to, I'll tell you the secret, right? You can start hitting enter 3 times right there. It's going to go to this one. That's the closest to it. So enter, 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 right? So that's 13.940 is the first one. Okay, and then the second one, that's when you have to travel a bit. Second trace 5, you have to go a little bit closer to the other one. Even if you go past it, it's better because now it will find the one closest to it. So that one is 16.06. 16.060. Okay, there we go. One more thing, because everything is connected. I don't want you to think of certain areas of the book disconnected from what we're doing. If you wanted to do C like this, really what you're finding, when you're finding the y-intercept, you're finding in this case h of 0, right? When x is equal to 0. Remember I showed you how to do that? So that'd be negative 17.89, 86 or 89? 89, right? 0 minus 15 squared plus 20. Okay, so you're plugging in the 0, you're finding the y-intercept. So that's negative 17.89, 15 squared. What's 15 squared, right? That's 225 plus 20. If you now want to just go ahead and type this all in, right? Negative 17.89 times 225 plus 20, you're still getting the same answer. So if you're ever stuck, it's not showing up on your screen, maybe this will now help you. Oh, my window needs to go all the way down to like 4,500 or 4,200 or something even lower than this, right? So everything is connected. I promise you, right? Even though, right, I take some times like, hey, now we're going to learn how to do this, right? And then I did, but it's really all the same, okay? So when x is equal to 0, y is equal to this. This is sort of the pre-cal way of doing things, right? This is more the applied way of doing things. And quite frankly, it is because we have calculators. Pre-cal probably wouldn't have this big of a number, right? They would not go that because oftentimes they're not allowed to use a calculator. Okay, so next is E, the graph, the most important part, I would say, of this whole operation. And I gave you grid paper because I think you should be able to do it without, but here it is. I'm kind of, watch this folks, again, every day is a learning opportunity. I'm kind of just going to focus on this quadrant here, maybe a little bit of quadrant 1, but most of the action happens here, right? So I'm kind of just going to do the same. It is my y-axis, and the x-axis is just going to go way up top here, like this. Okay? So this is x and y. Do that right away. Don't lose marks for that, right? And then come up with an x scale. I'm going to make this a little longer. A little longer, and that's okay, right? So this will be 10. This will be 20 for me, right? Because the vertex. Oh, then I'm in trouble though for the y scale. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I need to make sure I get that negative 4,000 in here. So I'm going to go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So every 2 boxes, right, represent 1,000 for me here. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So my y scale has to stay at 1,000, right? This right here is actually 1,000 positive, right? Like you can't deviate from your scale that you pick. So you kind of got to stick with it. And then my x scale, there you can change it up a little bit. 5, 10, 15, 20, something like that. You can keep going if you want, but not necessary. Okay. So my x scale in this case, my x scale is actually 2.5, right? 2.55, 7.5, 10. But just make sure every second box in my case is worth 5. That's a consistent scale. So there is 15, 15, 20 would be right here. And based on this scale, guys, it almost looks like you're right on the x-axis, but just put it a little bit above it, right? Then the y-intercept is just right here somewhere close to the 4,000 mark. And your 13.9, that would be right about there. And the other one is right about there. Okay. So then you just go ahead and graph it like that. And then you just write down your equation, remember that. And this is negative 17.89 x minus 15 squared plus 20. So you have all intercepts and the vertex, you have a scale, you have everything. As I was going around, some of you just focused on this part right here, so your graph kind of looks like this. And then you stop right there. I know that yesterday or when I showed you how to graph, I didn't include this. But because I made you find all the intercepts, I kind of wanted you to have that in here. That's why I said all intercepts, right? So we'll just take off, today we'll take off, it's worth 4, right, that question? So let's take off a half mark only today for not including this point right here. But if your scale is good, if you have your vertex and your x-intercepts on there, that would be, for me, 3.5. And let's talk about losing marks. If you don't have x and y on there, I would take off half a mark. If you don't have your equation on there, I would take off half a mark. If you're missing any arrowheads whatsoever, I would take off half a mark. That's kind of how I look at a graph. I'm like, okay, looks pretty good. Oh, arrowhead's missing. So I just keep taking off marks for that. So it's worth 4 altogether, though. Okay. So let's see, what are we at here? 4 marks for the graph. The x-intercepts, what did we have there? X-intercepts, 2 marks. The y-intercept, 1 mark. That's for C. Explaining how you know how many x-intercepts there are and actually telling me how many there are, that was worth 2. And the vertex is worth 1. So we are at a total of, should be 10. Yeah. 10 marks total. So put your name and last name on there. I'll give this one back to you once I recorded your mark. So just make sure there's a mark at the top there, right? And if I don't touch it, if it's the same when I hand it back, that means that I agree with you, right? If it's changed, then obviously I either found a mark that I added or I subtracted, whatever the case. Okay. So name and last name on there as well, because I don't know your handwriting. Just